T minus 90 seconds. T minus 80 seconds. T minus 70 seconds. T minus 60 seconds. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 15 seconds.
I don't know how many of you watched Boba Phil and Matt Eggy Wags when they talked about their impressions of Indy 5. They seemed to kind of like it. And I was like, I mean, Phil not as much, but Eggy seemed to really enjoy it. But they were both reasonably like you might like it. It didn't seem to get to them so much. I'm trying to figure out what movie they saw because this movie is The Last Jedi. This movie is The Last Jedi. And I don't know how you can hate The Last Jedi and think that this was good or passable or anything. I'm rather shocked by what I've been seeing. This is Mark Hamill said he started thinking of him as Jake Skywalker, a different character. Let's see what we got here. It's Indiana Jake. First of all, I'd like to give you guys, this is Thursday night. So it's the opening night. And this is Indiana Jones, one of the biggest properties that came out of the 80s. Certainly is a cultural touchstone. So, and I remember when Crystal Skull came out and everybody was on board, ready to go with that. So you'd figure there'd be at least some people there. Well, let me show you. That is the theater I was in. I mean, look at it. Just brimming full. Okay. Maybe people don't like to go to the they don't like to go to the front. It's hard to see the screen when you're at the front. So let's just check and see. But oh no, empty there too. Just completely empty. There may be 4 people in the theater. So fortunately, I don't have to worry about this being Avatar 2 or anything. It's not going to happen. There was nobody there. Now there'll probably be a few more tonight, but my God, what a disaster this is. So, I mean, I'm telling you, this is Last Jedi, and I got the receipts. First of all, why isn't Indy in his college? He's not at the college that we've seen him in every time. I forget the name of it, Marshall or something like that, whatever fake name it was. But it was you got the sense that it was somewhat of a college town, probably outside the city a bit, and it had nice Ivy League kind of feel to it. And you would figure that at this point he would be the dean of students, or at least a very respected tenured professor. No, he's at some city college, away from everybody, in a shitty neighborhood, withdrawn from everybody, and just basically seems to be waiting to die. None of his students take him seriously. He's just nothing. Sound like Luke on his island, just giving up. And why did Luke give up? Well, Luke gave up because he had a bad thing happen to his, let's say, surrogate son. That was his nephew, but there was kind of a parent-child relationship going on there a little bit, or at least a mentor-student relationship going on there. And so something bad happens to him, and he just withdraws from the world. And what happened to Indy? Well, Mutt died in Vietnam, so he withdrew from the world, and he ends up at this shitty little place. And you can withdraw from the world and be in the middle of the city. It's clear that's what he's doing. And here's this old Indy walking around with his boxer shorts, telling the kids next door to keep it down. So we've got that part going. Grumpy, he's an ass. Then who's going to bring him out of his little, get him back on the road to adventure again? Wow, the plucky woman who can't do no wrong and has an English accent. And she is insufferable throughout this. Now they say, well, hey, doesn't Indy get to do more than what Luke did? Not really. It looks like he does. It kind of feels like he does, but he doesn't. He sits there and he gets into fights and he'll punch people, but it's just mindless action. When something actually has to happen to get them out of whatever predicament they're in, he ends up kind of sidelined, and she has to get him out. And you watch it again and figure how many times it was him actually getting them out of the predicament they were in. Most of the time it was her. When they're sitting on the boat, she pulls out the dynamite and tricks the guy while he's just sitting there looking kind of befuddled and taking her lead. When he ends up on captured by the Nazis on the plane at the end, she has to get on the plane and rescue him. It happens more than once, and it's absolutely insufferable. So then they get to the end of the movie, and what did Luke do at the end of Jedi? He basically chose to die. Yeah, he did his Force hologram, but he could have gotten in his plane. He could have gotten in his X-Wing and headed over to the fight and, did the Jedi Master stuff. There's no reason he couldn't have done that. But no, he has to do the things so that he dies. He has to do the Force hologram or the Skype so that he dies. And Indy gets to the end of this. What happens is, and I'm skipping to the end, and then I'll go through a little bit more of the details, but what happens is they end up back in time, in Archimedes' time, and he meets Archimedes. He says, I want to stay here. Even though he's got a bullet wound, and he's probably going to die, because, they didn't do so well with medicine back then. But even if he wasn't going to die, if he stays back there in time, there's a 50-50 chance he could really screw up history. The thing he's dedicated his entire freaking life to preserving. It's his whole reason for being, putting things in a museum, honoring history and everything. Okay, yeah. Did he do Fortune and Glory and Temple of Doom? Yeah, there was technically a prequel to Raiders. And really, I don't know how much of his heart was into that. I think he wanted to get the Sankara stone and put it in a museum. I don't think he wanted to just sell it off to the highest bidder in a hotel. And the rest of the time, it was all about putting things in museums. Preserving history. He goes back in time. He's going to choose to stay back 2,000 years ago and possibly F up all of history. Who is this person? I don't know what you guys saw. I love you too, Matt, Phil, I love you too, but I don't know what the hell you saw or how you could sit there and tell me how bad Last Jedi is. And then would I feel like give this a pass? I'm not giving Kathleen Kennedy, I'm not giving anybody the benefit of the doubt here anymore. Kathleen Kennedy proved it starting with Last Jedi, moving on to, I mean, Mandalorian is now the Bo-Katan show. Every one of these has been strong female character. It's absolutely insufferable. And I don't believe that any of it was done in good faith. This is they wanted to wreck Indiana Jones, they wanted to wreck Star Wars. I know that they hate us. I know that they hate people my age, my color, my sex. They hate me and they want to show it. And they clearly did it again with Indiana Jones. This is the kind of garbage that went on. So it starts out, he's in this crap hole and he's teaching his class who could care less. And Helena, Phoebe Waller-Bridges' character, meets him, and she's apparently his goddaughter. Her father was this guy. Okay, I'll take it one more step back. I apologize. The first 15 minutes of it is a throwback Indy adventure, a mini Indy adventure where they've de-aged him and he's fighting Nazis in the middle of the war. It's just about the end of the war. That's how he gets half of the Dial of Destiny. And Toby Jones is the guy he's working with and rescues. And that's when he has his first run in with Matt Mikkelsen's character, who's also de-aged in this. A lot of people talk about Harrison Ford's de-aging, and Matt Mikkelsen gets pretty de-aged in this too. And that whole scene was the special effects a little janky here and there. It wasn't too bad. It's never going to be a fully practical effects stud spectacular that they did in Raiders. I'm sorry, those days are gone. But was it a reasonably good, fun throwback Indy? Yeah, I actually enjoyed that. I thought, okay, maybe this is going to be okay. And then as soon as I got back to New York and the rest of the movie went, wow, it got bad. And I mean, horrendously bad. So he's teaching. We see him. He's in this, he's walking around in his boxer shorts, telling kids to, turn down the music. And he's teaching his class. She shows up, asks about the Dial of Destiny. He gives it to her. At the same time, the doctor from the beginning of the movie, he's not Mads Mikkelsen's character, he's trying to find this half of the Dial of Destiny. And he's using the CIA to track it down. Now, at first, all we see is him and his thugs and a black woman. And we think that this is just his gang. But no, she's with the CIA. Apparently, he helped them, this doctor, get to the moon. Kind of the German scientist thing, right? And so when he starts his men start really thugging it up, the black lady, the CIA, she doesn't like any of that because we can't have her be evil. No, she's a black lady. She's going to have a heart of gold and she's going to get shot and killed because she's CIA. She's a good person, just happened to be with a bad guy, didn't realize what was going on. Now, how interesting would it have been if she had hooked up with these Nazis and really was all in on this, and maybe she was like a duped person who didn't really know history very well. Does that sound familiar with some of these kids this day and age? Doesn't really understand all this. That might have been somewhat interesting, but no, that was no way they were going to do that, and they don't have the balls for that. So they put Helena steals the Dial of Destiny, and he gets kind of captured, and he's able to get away. And that's when they have him having the big chase scene with the ticker tape parade. And he's on a horse, and he runs into the subway, and they chase him. Oh, it just goes on and on forever. And so he gets back to Salah's place. Now, Salah has apparently moved to the United States thanks to Indiana Jones, and his family is there. That's all good. And Salah apparently knows that Helena is going to sell this Dial of Destiny in Tangiers at the, where you sell all the antiquities to rich people. I don't know how he knows this. He's been living, obviously, in the USA for decades. How does he know what's going on in Tangiers? I mean, I moved 40 miles away. I have no idea what's going on in the town I grew up in, and I'm only 40 miles away. I don't know how he knows this, especially in 1969. So, okay, fine. He gets him his whip and his hat, his jacket, and they go to and Indy goes to Tangiers. And he gets right to the hotel where she's having this whole thing. So she's trying to auction it off, and then things go bad, and the guy shows up. The bad guy shows up to chase him down, along with Helena's ex-boyfriend, who also wants to murder her. Or she used him or something that happened to live in Tangiers. And it's all an excuse to have a big chase fight. How does the guy find him? I'm not really clear on that. I think that there was something with the CIA that helped him, maybe, but it's not really, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And that, you'll hear me say that a lot. It doesn't make a lot of sense. The bad guy kept showing up out of nowhere constantly. And he needed the lamest of hand-waving excuses on how he got there. And so they have this chase in Tangiers. They get away, and they realize that they need to go to find the other half where the first half was found, and it's this wrecked trireme off the coast of I don't think it's in Sicily. It's in, but it's in the Mediterranean. And so he says, "Well, I know a guy," and they get to the boat, and the boat is captained by Antonio Banderas. And I swear to God, it felt like one of those 70s variety shows, or like that Austin Powers moment. It says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Antonio Banderas." Da, 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 da. It's like, oh, okay, fine. We have to Antonio Banderas, so he's in it for 10 minutes and then gets killed. And he's supposedly a great, why couldn't they find Katenga? Why couldn't they find Katenga and have Saleh have called Katenga and have him do it? He might be alive. He might be really old. They could have recast the actor. I don't know if the actor's alive or not, but it would have tied something together a little bit better. But apparently, no, it's Antonio Banderas. He's a huge friend of Indy's. We've never heard of him before, so I'm supposed to feel something because it's a name actor, I guess. They go down the boat. They have the whole, you got to have an Indy moment where there's way too many animals, maybe rats, maybe snakes, maybe bugs, whatever. This time it's eels, so sea snakes, so it's really bad. And when they get up to the boat, there's the guy. He's found them. He's pulled up his boat. How did he find them? I don't know. But there's Mads Mikkelsen ready to take it away. And then they're able to get away. And they're able to keep him from following. But he just watches them with the binoculars and says, oh, they're going west instead of east. I know where they're going. It's like, how do you know where they're going? You don't. How'd you find that out? I don't know how you found that out by just watching them go in different directions. It's a pretty big, Sicily is a pretty big damn island. You don't know where they're heading for sure. But of course, he just shows up again because the movie has to happen. And Helena and Indy go down a cave and they find the other half they find Archimedes' tomb and they find the other half of the Dial of Destiny. They put the whole thing together. And the thing is it's like a map. It's like the Time Bandits map. I think that's what Boba Phil said. But it's basically it points you someplace, and if you go there, then you will find a time hole that you can go through. Now, this is just ridiculous because it's like, well, what if the next time hole doesn't appear for another 50 years? How do you know it's going to appear within the time of this movie? How does it may be mathematics, but the mathematics is just saying when the next one's going to show up. But we don't know when a time hole is going to show up. It could show up at any time. Or is the time hole always there? And if it is, how come nobody's ever noticed it before? So then you go, okay, whatever. So they go through the time hole, and just before they get there, Indiana Jones is saying, well, Archimedes didn't know about continental drift. So you could be way off. You're probably not going to 1939 to get the Nazi. That's what Mad Knuckles says. He's a Nazi. Okay, because it's Indy's got to fight Nazis, right? So he's trying to go back in time to take over for the Fuhrer and not make his same mistakes and make Germany win the war. But he's like, well, there's continental. He starts babbling on about continental drift, and you don't know where you're going. And sure enough, they go through the hole and they end up in Archimedes' time. And through a series of misadventures, Indy and Helena end up parachuting down and meet Archimedes. Archimedes says, well, you were always supposed to come here. This is how I designed it. You're always supposed to come here. I'm like, well, what's all that shit about continental drift then? What has that got to do with anything? And if there is continental drift, even if he made it that way, then why didn't he? How did he still end up at the correct place that Archimedes wanted if Archimedes didn't account for that? Or is that just bullshit that Indy was making up? Or I don't know. I don't know. So then that's when he gets back in time. He says, I just want to stay here and die for no reason. He just says, I want to stay here and die. Because he'd been shot at that point and Helena had to rescue him. And Helena punches him in the face that knocks him unconscious for several days, and he wakes up back in New York. And Indy had been taking shots from henchman McSteroid all movie and from grown men and everything, and he'd been doing fine. But noodle-armed Helena, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, can take him out. And not just for a few minutes, for days. But she's just that awesome. And to punctuate how just awesome as she is, when he wakes up back in his New York apartment, remember, they were in Sicily. Even if they go back through the wormhole, they're still in fucking Sicily, which means they also had to drag his ass onto a plane, unconscious, take him all the way back to New York, get him in his bed, get him bandaged up at a hospital, then get him into his bed. And then she had the time to go and find Marion and fix their marriage because she's just that freaking awesome. Excuse me. This movie was absolute. This movie was Last Jedi. I'm telling you guys. Phoebe Waller-Bridge was, Rey, as much as she was a Mary Sue, I don't feel like she was completely. I don't feel like she was completely unlikable. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, on the other hand, is completely unlikable. She is a awesome archaeologist. She's a lovable rogue. She maybe at one point she actually says, because I'm awesome and I'm amazing and I'm smart and intelligent and like Mary Poppins, I'm practically perfect in every way. Like in the middle of a car chase, she's saying this, and just can't keep her mouth shut. And then you don't know if she's going to turn on Indy or if she's going to help Indy. And then at the end, she decides that she has to save Indy. Why? I don't know. There's no reason for. She has no character arc. She's just whatever she needs to be in the moment of the scene. So if that needs to be a lovable rogue, or if it needs to be a con artist, or if it needs to be an aspiring student, or if it needs to be Indy's goddaughter, or if it needs to be a caring woman. There's no cause and effect with any of this. It's just random synapse firings. That's it. There is no, I guess we'll do. There's no arc with her. I mean, I could maybe put up with it if there was an arc, but there's no arc with her. There's no rhyme and reason to the plot. There's so many things that are just so freaking stupid. I can't even understand it. And in the end, it is still a character destruction of Indiana Jones, just like it was with Luke Skywalker. And I mean beat for beat. You have him in a nomadic existence out there in the middle of nowhere. You have him giving up on the world because he had a son or a son type die or follow the dark side, which is kind of like death in Star Wars, right? He's got to be brought into this and pretty much rescued and pushed along by the plucky female English character, because Kathleen Kennedy has a thing for English girls, or that's her self insert. And then he just wants to give up and die at the end, which is what Luke did. That force projection stuff. What did he do? What did he do? He didn't kill one person. What happened? Nothing. A slight bit of delay. That was it. He could have done that by coming in the X-Wing and joining the fight afterwards. No, he chose to die, and Indy chose to die. The only difference here is that Kathleen is smarter this time. She's not going to actually let him die, but she is going to make sure that Helena fixes his marriage and rescues him, and pretty much overshadows him the entire movie. And people say, well, he still did a lot. No, he had the appearance of doing a lot. He didn't do a lot. He gets into the fight, so he does the punch-ups and everything, but they're all just action beat, action beat, action beat, action beat. Every action scene, it's like fight, punch, bang, punch, shoot, punch, punch. Okay, that's how most action scenes. But at some point towards the end of the action scene, the hero does something to get himself out of the predicament. And when it gets to that point, it's Helena that gets him out of the predicament. Rewatch it. Well, no, don't ever rewatch it. But if you're feeling masochistic, check it out again. See how many times she's the one that does the final thing that gets him out of it. I think maybe one time Indy did it. To be honest with you, I can't really remember. So it is unbelievable garbage, and it's something that you fool me once with Last Jedi. I tried to make excuses for Last Jedi before it finally sunk in what the hell was really going on here. But now that I've watched Disney as a whole and Lucasfilm in particular do this time after time after time again, I do not have any benefit of the doubt. Kathleen, they did this on purpose. They destroyed him on purpose. This is the way they want him to go out. As a joke, as destroyed. It's another Jake Skywalker film, guys. That's what it is. It's a Jake Skywalker film. So don't be fooled. This movie is crap. It is insulting, it is enraging, for the same reasons that The Last Jedi enraged us and divided us all. It has the exact same beats, has the exact same thing, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. This is Indiana Jake. That's why I called it that way, Indiana Jake, because it is not Indiana Jones. He is incompetent. Most of the time, Ford looks like he has no idea what. First of all, he put him in the hat and the jacket and everything, because you got to put him in the hat and the jacket and everything. He's Indiana Jones, except he's 80 and he looks ridiculous. He doesn't look like when they did the de-aging stuff. I actually liked it. I mean, I'm sure there's some things that look janky. I'm sure some people is like, oh, it's so rubbery and deep fake. I get it. Some people have a higher tolerance for that than I do. But for the most part, I enjoyed that whole beginning thing. But once they went to the present day and he's just in the costume, it looks sad. And half the time he has a look on his face like he has no idea what's going on. And I think it's because with all the rewrites and all the different things and all the editing at the 11th hour to try to save this piece of shit, which by the way, fail. I don't think he knew what was going on in this damn thing. I think he had no idea what was going on. And it shows. And I think this whole I don't know. And I take Doomcock with a huge grain of salt. I don't watch him on a regular basis. I only hear after the fact. But the fact that it just was a punch in the face and cut to black, and then he ends up in his apartment, we don't see them, how they get back or any of that kind of stuff. I gotta feel like that this whole idea of her doing Indy's adventures or something, or that all of that, I think that was probably filmed or something. We may find that out 20 years from now. Hopefully I'm dead and I never have to see it. But they'll open up the deleted scenes vault, or they'll try to come up with a director's edition or some bullshit. But I'm telling you, it just was bizarre how clunky. I mean, it ends with a punch in the face and a fade to black. And then he ends up back in the apartment, and Marion walks in. Why? Don't know, because Phoebe Waller-Bridge is that awesome. And fine, they walk out, and he kind of makes up with Marion because they were separated at the beginning of the movie, and then they do a circle wipe, like this, onto his hat that's hanging outside, and then he grabs it at the end. What? To go on another adventure? I don't want to see another adventure. Leave it up on the goddamn clothesline. I don't want to see it. Burn that goddamn hat. I look, the Indiana Jones movies originally were not always the most realistic thing. I understand that. I mean, people say, well, what about when he went off the raft in Indiana Jones Temple of Doom? They fell down the raft and they went, and he was okay. It's like, yeah, that probably wouldn't happen. But you know what? At least they filmed a raft with some dummies to fall to give it some sort of plausibility. But now they do everything in the computer. So when you do screw up the plausibility, it looks even more implausible because it's all done in the computer. So I'm just, I mean, you would say go woke. It's more than that. It's just corporate suicide. They want to keep Kathleen Kennedy. They want to set fire to all these properties that they paid $4 billion for. Fine, I'm here for it. I want to see Disney go bankrupt. I want to see Lucasfilm go bankrupt, or I will accept Lucas buying it back and trying to fix everything. I mean, we can complain about the prequels and Crystal Skull all we want. They were misfires, or they didn't accomplish what they should have accomplished. Crystal Skull had a lot of problems, but I don't feel like it ever was trying to destroy Indy as a character. And this definitely was. One thing I loved about Last Crusade is that everybody at the end was just pretty much effing useless. They're all just captured, or like Brody and his dad are captured in the tank, and Brody can't even get off a tank properly without looking like a fool. And Sala is too worried about getting camels for his brother-in-law. And it's just hilarious. But now Indy is the clown. Indy is the guy that can't do anything without help. And they pretend. They fool you. They pretend. They try to make it look like he's doing a lot of stuff. But in the end, when it matters, it's Phoebe Waller-Bridge doing the thing. And there's very little that he's doing, or at best, he's about her equal. He may throw in occasional suggestion here and there. So I just do not understand why anybody like this. So fine. But I'm just not. This movie was the worst. So let's go through here. We have a resident. The Big Mike, the salt must flow. Well, I mean, you want to say that I'm. Yeah, if I think that this is all good, let's see. Go with Quote. They're tanking every movie hero right down the list. They did Satman. What'd you actually expect? Well, I expected it, but I'm confirming it, guys. It was practical as real. CGI is fake. Yes, it is. If you compare this to that lady movie, this is awesome. Moaning about CGI, these movies these days. Lucas made that last Friday. Well, it destroyed. Yeah, look, I'm not trying to defend the prequels or the last Crystal Skull. I'm just saying I don't feel like they were actively trying to destroy the characters. That's all. Okay, well, all right, fine. I'm a clown. That's fine. Absolutely correct. I'm tired of hearing people saying, I hope the next one is good. For fuck's sake, how? No, I don't think it's I don't I hope there is no good no more. I don't want it to be there. That's just crazy. Uh and this guy is unsubscribed, calls me a clown. Oh, okay, fine. I'm a clown. I don't know. I don't know what you know. Maybe you could explain to me exactly what you liked out of Dial of Destiny. Why you think it was so good? Please tell me. Because I didn't see it. All I saw was Kathleen Kennedy doing her best to Last Jedi Indiana Jones. She destroyed Luke Skywalker. Now she's destroyed Indiana Jones. I mean, if you're gonna be like me, it's like, well, I'm not, I watched the first three Star Wars, I'll watch the first three Indiana Jones, and nothing else really exists for me. To a certain extent, not even the prequels. But yeah, I mean, this is where we're at. So, Big Gator, nice to see you. Rogue Thought, nice to see you. Kelly Kaku, I bet I blew that up, but yep. No, I don't want to say like I didn't expect it, but part of this is a response to the other guys that are on this channel or on this site who talked about it. Phil was lukewarm, but he found himself being entertained, and Matt seemed to like it. And I was just listening to this going, I don't understand. And then when I watched it and I saw it was basically The Last Jedi, and knowing how those two feel about Last Jedi, I was kind of flabbergasted. I was kind of trying to figure out what they saw. Because, I mean, this movie is a scam. It's a damn scam. And I'm like going, why are you, what is it why don't you see this? Why can't you see the obvious Jake Skywalker allusions to this? Clearly they were trying to destroy him. I don't know what you're thinking. It's just the same. And yeah, I mean, even I put this up. I'd had these thoughts yesterday, but I didn't have a chance to do this till tonight. But then Critical Drink came out, and he basically said a lot of the same stuff. I don't think he went far enough, because I mean, I was like going, he tried to kill him. He wanted to die at the end. Why do you want to die at the end? Don't know, as he would say. I had no idea why he decided he wanted to die at the end, other than he met Archimedes and thought, oh, I'm in the past. This is cool. It's like, what is wrong with you? So I don't know. My memories will only include the original. Yeah, that's right, Rogue. That's where I'm going to be. Last Crusade was the last Indy movie. Yeah, and the only thing I was watching Red Letter Media the other day, and there was always something that I love Last Crusade. I think it's a great movie. I think it's a great Indiana Jones adventure. But there was always something that felt a little, I don't want to say off, but just there was a something that was a little bit different about it compared to the other two. And I couldn't figure it out. And they finally, when they talked about it, they finally pinned it on me. Last Crusade was when Indiana Jones became a character, whereas in Raiders and in Temple of Doom, he's just Adventure Man. He has no arcs in those two movies. Maybe the tiniest of one in Temple of Doom, but it's a speed bump, not much of an arc. But in Raiders, Last Crusade, when they give him when they bring his father into it, and he, has that moment with his father, and they reconcile and everything. He became a real character in that. And while I think it was done fabulously and everything, it did change Indy a little bit. It changed him from just James Bond is not a character either. The only time James Bond has any character growth is when he got married and then his wife got killed. And then they briefly mention it. But every other movie, he's just basically secret agent man doing his thing. and he has no growth. He has no character arc. That's okay. That's not a criticism. That's what we love about James Bond. That's why it's so different with the Daniel Craig stuff, because he is a character and he does have arcs. He has history and everything. Your mileage may vary on whether or not that's what you want out of a James Bond movie. But up until then, he was simply Secret Agent Man. And for the first two Indiana Jones, that's what he was. And that was understandable. They were trying to make their own James Bond because Spielberg wasn't allowed to do James Bond. So, but in Last Crusade, he actually became a character. And I was like, okay. That's why it always, I don't want to say it bothered me. It's just, when you have that little niggling thing, it's like where you're just like I'm just trying to figure out what is different about this one than the other two that I couldn't put my finger on. And they helped me nail it. It was like, oh, that's what it is. He's a character. He's not Adventure Man. And yeah, I think for the last movie in a trilogy, that was a very good thing, Big Gator. I think that was a great thing. Because they made him, they closed it out with just taking him to the next level. It made it more epic and everything. That's why Crystal Skull and this one are terrible, because you've done your character arc in the third one and you need to stop, and they didn't stop. And now you put it in the hands of people who despise him. And despise his fans even more so. They despise his fans. I have no doubt anymore that Kathleen Kay despises the Gen X fans of Indiana Jones and Star Wars, and any others that are that way. And so that's what they've done. That's a big FU to us. It's also a big FU to Spielberg and Lucas. I kind of wonder what Lucas thinks of what has happened to his creation. There was a lot to criticize with Lucas after the prequels and some other things, but we can't deny his contribution to the movies at large. He's the one who created ILM. He's the one who created THX. He's the one who created Skywalker Sound. He's the one who pushed technology and movies in ways that had never been done before. And not to mention, he gave us the great American myth. And whether or not he succeeded, I mean, we could talk about Howard the Duck, right? I mean, whether or not he succeeded in everything he tried or not, that's could be debated. But I never felt like he was trying to do something that was utterly contemptuous of the people that got him there. And yet that's where we are now. It's unbelievable the amount of contempt that Disney and Lucasfilm have for their customers. And I know that's across the board at so many companies right now. They're just absolute contempt. So, yep, that's it. I didn't want to go on too long. But I appreciate you guys watching. I'm obviously getting more and more drunk as it goes on. I gotta finish this up. Get that eraser on the blackboard that is that movie. And yeah, I'm so pleased that the theaters looked the way they did. I'm so pleased with that. I'm so pleased that they were empty as hell. And this was a $300 million budgeted movie, which they spent God knows what on marketing. And I know they'll do creative accounting, but they can't hide this. This is going to be bad. You know what? I'm going to look real quick and then I'll close it down. Let's take a look at good old Deadline and see if they have any information. Indiana Jones still eyeing opening weekend of 60 to 65 million. Guys, I mean, if my theater was any indication, yeah. Yep, Kirk, 300 million. $300 million. Um, they're saying it's going to open at 60 to 65 million for the opening weekend. Geez. Okay. So you would have to make 6x of your opening weekend to get to 300 million. 5x, excuse me, 5x. That's going to be a tough road to hoe because nobody is going is I mean it's not going to get good word of mouth. I mean, people like me on the internet shredding it, and wow, yeah, and you're right. It's going to need to make $1 billion, but it ain't gonna do it. It ain't gonna make. So I would admit, on average, and given that this is not a good movie, like a successful movie make 2.5 to 3x. Now, I'm only talking domestically. I don't know what it'll do overseas. But if it makes 2x, that would only be 120 million. That's a complete and utter bomb. And given the lackluster word of mouth, the lackluster reviews, and people like me that really divided on it, 2x is probably about the best you're going to do domestically. And then, whatever you rake in overseas, which you don't get as much money back overseas as you do domestically, they're in trouble. They are absolutely in trouble. They fundamentally hate the hero's journey, especially if the hero's journey is a white male. Just saying that makes me sick. They are antithesis of all they say they stand for. Disgusting. They stand for racial segregation and group rewards and punishment. They don't like individualism. So, that's just the way they are. Unmedicated box office. I think you wanted a different word there, but I'll take unmedicated. They're going to be medicating themselves pretty soon. Yep, does need to make $1 billion. So I don't think it's going to make it. I don't think it's ever going to get close to that. I think it's going to be a complete utter bomb. Last Jedi probably would have been a bomb if not for we were at the beginning of all this woke nonsense. I remember I was thinking about earlier how jaded and cynical I've become. I remember after Force Awakens, I genuinely liked Force Awakens, although I did have my problems with it. But I was willing to see where they went. And then when I heard that everybody at Lucasfilm was so happy with Last Jedi, this was just before it came out, that they were giving Rian Johnson his own trilogy. And I stupidly thought that these were people who at least wanted to make movies the way they've always made movies, which is trying to please an audience. It wasn't until, as we went through the years, I realized that they thought it was great because Kathleen Kennedy and most of the people in Hollywood had turned into woke lunatics. And so now they don't. Now, after going through this meat grinder of Hollywood movies since Ghostbusters 2016, really, that I've come to realize how much they make stuff to destroy it, to show contempt for the common man, to show contempt for their audience. And now I look at everything with just such a cynical eye. And I'll admit that did color me a little bit, or maybe open my eyes to see what they're doing. But when you've been watching it over and over and over again, and it's not just, look at Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man's a supporting player in his own right. They had that stupid female Avengers moment in Endgame. And then you had Captain Marvel, and then Mandalorian turned into the Bo-Katan show with Lizzo and Jack Black guest starring for body positivity. And you realize that everything they're doing is just to shove down some weird lunatic political message instead of actually doing anything that is fun, that is makes sense, that is for artistic purposes. or to just make a decent movie that everybody will love. Because if you hate everybody that's below you or not in your bubble, then of course you're going to make all that kind of stuff. Where does the money come from? Yes, I know ESG, but burning millions can go on so long. We know, Rogue, I discussed that. It's like, if Disney keeps hemorrhaging like this and hemorrhaging like this, and BlackRock or State Street or Vanguard keeps saying, well, you got to be ESG or else we're going to sell all our shares and tank your stock. Well, that's fine, well, and good as long as the money keeps coming in. But if Disney goes bankrupt, then BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, you now have 20% of zero. How is this working for you? Well, good news is I hear that Larry Fink and BlackRock are starting to back off this ESG stuff. I'm hearing that state pensions are starting to sell off their BlackRock and they don't want any part of it. So it's slowly happening. And basically this ESG stuff between Bud Light, Target, and all these others, it's not sustainable. Let's just put it that way. It's not sustainable. You can't just keep pouring money and not getting any return in. Sooner or later, it's got to dry up. If you force all these companies to do this ESG stuff, that BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard all own about 20% of these companies, which is sizable enough that if they sell, they tank the stock. That's how they force them in there. That's how they keep the investment money running in. But if the investment money, where does that come from? It comes from profits. And if you're not able to get any profits, I mean, other than the friggin' government's printing money and doing a bailout, but even that's not sustainable either, because then the inflation goes way up and everything else. So sooner or later, you got to say, this ain't working. And you're going to go out of business. BlackRock is going to not have anything. I hear Google is starting to lose money, that their Google ads are falling apart and they're getting sued because of that. Guys, this is a rule of life. That which is not sustainable will not sustain. Period. Amen. Reality will always assert itself. You can only keep up the charade for so long. In this case, they're only going to be able to keep it up for another year or two. But Disney has had failure after failure after failure after failure, flop after flop after flop. They are hemorrhaging money. And I'm here for it. To a certain extent, I'm here for it. I'm really saddened that such a great company, which had provided so much culture and joy for 90 years, I know it's Disney 100th anniversary, but I'll say 90 years, has completely and utterly committed suicide. And I don't want to see these great American companies commit suicide. But if that's what has to happen, well, the other rule is that nature abhors a vacuum. Something will come and take its place, something that will actually work. Whether or not the shareholders revolt to get Disney back on track, or Disney goes and they have to get carved up and other people buy some of the properties, or new people come in with new ideas and start building new IPs. Who knows? But it won't sustain this way. It will die. And you cannot just kill off all your most valuable properties, expect to stay in business. Well, that's the end of my wine. Burn, baby, burn. Yes. Thank you. It's nice to hear. Yeah, I mean, I think there is hope. I think there is hope on the horizon, but not for our old properties. The people that did them are too old to do them anymore. And the only thing that's going to happen is we need to get new properties, and we need to get new ideas and new things. And I think we should. I think that the younger generation should have their, Gen X. I'm getting tired of all the culture being built around the Gen X stuff. from Star Trek to Star Wars, Indiana Jones to back to all the stuff from the 80s. Guys, that was our time. I loved it. It was great. It's great classics to introduce our kids to, but our kids should have their own stuff. And they don't. There's no new IPs. All they're doing is strip mining the old ones. And not only strip mining them, but they're destroying them in the process, apparently on purpose. But they got nothing. But if they've destroyed them, they're not making any money on them. What are they making new? I don't see Disney making anything new. Nothing. So if these don't work, what do they got? I hear Secret Wars, or I'm sorry, Secret Invasion, whatever it's called, though the Sam Jackson MCU thing. I hear that is just awful. And not only is it awful, but nobody's watching it. Nobody cares. I haven't watched it. I haven't watched a single. I'm done with the MCU. I'm done with Star Wars. I'm done with Star Trek. Picard season 3 was an aberration, not the norm, because Strange New Worlds is apparently crap. And I'm done with all of it, and I'm so jaded and cynical, and I hate that. I hate that I can't look forward to any movies anymore. There's a couple. The Mission Impossibles, I think Tom Cruise seems to be the one guy that doesn't hold us in contempt. He's trying to put out a good show. I'll say that about the Fast and Furious movies, too. They seem to be trying to put out a good show. As dumb as they are, and they are dumb, they don't hate me. And Dune, I think Denis Villeneuve seems to be a good artiste. He seems to know what he's doing, and I think he's done a very good job with that. He doesn't seem to go through all that woke nonsense. So you know what? There's a few here and there. I'm just sad that it isn't the, it's a little drip drop out of the pipe, and it used to be a gusher, just a flood of stuff all the time, something new that just grabbed and got all of America talking about, all the world talking about it, and it's so sad. So that's where we are. And Indiana Jones is, I'm hoping, the final nail in the coffin of wokeness. I hope it dies a horrible death financially. And I hope there's some real fallout. I think the 60 to 65 million, I'm hoping it's a lot less. I'm telling you, that empty theater on a Thursday, I don't know. I think they're overestimating. I think they're padding the numbers. And padding numbers at a $60 to $65 million opening on a big budget blockbuster with a long and well-known IP as this is a huge disaster. So I'm for it. Burn, baby, burn. Disney needs a second dark period. I think it's in the second dark period right now. I think it's there. Nostalgia is now radioactive. Yeah, you're right. Because every time I see something that's coming out from some old property, I think, how are they destroying it? How are they giving me the middle finger now? It's not, oh, cool, a new Star Wars movie. It's like, oh God, what are they doing now? That's how I look at it now. Didn't look at that 8 years ago, but I do now. Some independent movies spring. Yeah, there are. There's some good stuff out there. It's hard to find, but you can find some good stuff. It's just, hey, Extraction 2 is wonderful. Go watch that again. If you want a good adventure movie, go watch Extraction 2. It was great. So, Gator, Rogue, Kirk, thank you very much for watching. And I'm going to turn it down for now, probably get myself some dinner. But I imagine that, assuming we're doing it on Sunday, that we'll have Matt and Phil and me having a big old argument. So that's fine. I'm here for it. But I'm saying those two are wrong. Phil was less wrong, but he still was not nearly as hard on as he should have been. And Matt, I'm just really disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. All right. So take care. I'm looking for Grace Randolph's therapy session. Yeah, I bet. And go in peace and walk with God. Well, I'm going to walk with booze for at the very least. So take care. Thanks for watching on this very impromptu stream. And I'll see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.